Hello and welcome to this Engerati Energy Talk here in our studio. And we're now joined by Remy Claude Berdier and Simon Anderson. I'll get my guests to introduce themselves in a second, but let me frame the discussion we're going to have. We're going to talk about the clean energy package, and this is going to be part of a bigger analysis that we've done on the clean energy package. And my vision for this talk was I titled it The Regulator and the Regulated. The regulator chose not to show up, so it's just the regulated, but here we are. I think we're going to do a good job of it. And if I can ask you to just introduce yourselves in terms of what you do, so that the audience knows where your answers are coming from and what bias you may have in those.
So I'm Simon Anderson. I'm from a company called Geo. We operate in the UK out of Cambridge. Our aim is to help the consumer engage in energy and to save money from it. Our particular revenues at the moment are coming from the UK smart meter program, where we hold a large percentage of the in-home displays and consumer access hubs that are going out with that. About 4 million units in the market now, delivering about 150,000 units a month at the moment. And we're now extending our range into Europe.
I'm Remy Garod, working for Enedis. I'm the head of European affairs for Enedis, based in Brussels, so working a lot with the European Commission. Enedis is the French DSOs. We manage 95% of the French distribution grid.
So, Remy, let me go to you first. Because as you just say, you spend a lot of time in Brussels. You probably had a lot of involvement in the delivery of the clean energy package. I mean, from a DSO's perspective, I mean, how do you see it? I mean, because there's still this window of opportunity that we've got, because most of the framework is in place. It's being enshrined, but I think there's going to be, in a month, it'll be set in stone. Just give us an overview of how you see it from a DSO perspective.
For DSO perspective, we do welcome this new package for different reasons. But first, because the package is setting a new framework fully consistent with the COP21 objectives. So we will have in Europe a framework completely aligned with the targets set during the COP21 in Paris. For a pure perspective point of view, this package, for the first time, is acknowledging the key role of the DSOs in the energy transition. The package is saying that very clearly, and the package proposed, for example, the creation of a DSO entity. And the DSO entity will, with the TSO entity, will be in charge of writing the grid code. So for the first time, the DSO will be fully engaged in the code that sets the rules for our own grids. So that's great news for us.
And this is recognizing the DSO, but also enabling the DSO to play a more active part in the grid, because up until now, it's just been the distribution, and it's a recognition that the generation is happening at the edge. So you're now also transmitting in a way, right?
Yeah. To make it simple, in this package, we are really seen as a DSO, distribution system operator, and not only a DNO, distribution network operator. We have this system perspective clearly mentioned in the package. And the best example is about the flexibilities. We will be able to call flexibility for the distribution grid purposes. That's really great. We need it. With 95% of the renewables connected to the distribution grid in France, 95%. We need the flexibility the closest to those new sources. That's why we welcome what the package proposes.
And on that flexibility piece, I've been asking the question for other people, and some of the DSOs who've been sat in the chair saying the flexibility piece is great, but it doesn't acknowledge some of our physical issues. So there's the concept of bringing storage into play, not being able to do that, and that then still needs to be a little bit of a tweak in the wording, because you guys need to, this doesn't magically appear. The physical network needs to play well with the market, and sometimes, but it also needs to provide resiliency. It needs to be up all the time. So are there still some of those little tiny disconnects to be ironed out?
Regarding the storage in entities, we will buy the storage services on the market. We will not work on our own and don't use the market. We need this market, and we will play the game of the market. But
are you convinced the market is going to react fast enough? I mean, if the storage service needs to be right attached to the grid, are you going to get the market to react fast enough for you? Because otherwise, the other route is you increase your asset infrastructure spend because you're whacking in more copper to solve the problem when you've got smarter ways of doing it.
That's exactly the point. Yeah. That's what the package is mentioning very clearly. In case of market failure, the DSOs can own and operate the storage. When there is a market failure, what we would like to improve a bit is the definition of a market failure, because we already know that in some very remote area or rural area, the market players will probably not be very interested in providing storage facilities far in the mountain, for example. In those very particular places, we could face some problem of constraints, and we would like to use the storage to solve them, just for grid purposes. In this very specific place, we would like to be sure that we will be able to own and operate the storage. That's exactly the discussion we currently have with the Commission and with, of course, the storage provider. We don't want to fight against the storage provider. We want to work together. When the market is here, we will use the market. But the market will probably not address 100% of the cases.
Yeah, but that is my point. I respect the fact that it's okay, but you also need to be able to do your jobs, right? And there needs to be some flexibility, pardon the pun, in the regulation in order to do that. I'm going to give you a bit of a rest, Remy. Simon, can I come to you from your perspective? You're working a little bit, a lot more on the customer engagement side of things, and a lot of the tenet about the clean energy package is about engaging the consumer and finally making that transition happen. How do you see it? I mean, a similar question that I posed to Remy. Is it gone far enough? Are there still some tweaks? Will we start seeing people engage? Or giving you the opportunity to from a technology point of view, to make that engagement happen?
Always chance for tweaks.
Right.
We too are very happy with the package. I think the Commission has done an excellent job and putting consumers at the heart of this energy system is a really important breakthrough for us. And they talk about this concept of the active consumer, which is great. Now, we work with the Smart Energy Demand Coalition as an industry group, as a small business, and SEDC has had 10 asks that they wanted to see in this package, and all 10 have been covered in this package. So yes, we're really happy. I think the one that we're most interested in, though, is the Smart Building Indicator. And the reason for that is that if you think about the car market and what the CO2 emissions figure did for driving efficiency into the car market, we'd love to see something similar for the home. And actually we see that as the Smart Building Indicator, and we would like to see that to be an active measure of the demand flexibility that home can offer the grid. And if you put that in place, then you have a mechanism to start driving the technology and people like us to put more technology into the home to be able to answer some of the questions you have. So we are developing and showing here a hybrid home, which is like a hybrid car. It will reduce the cost of running the home by doing storage behind the meter and things like that. But it needs to dynamically work with the grid, which is where these things come in. So there's a lot that can be made from this package. Our biggest concern is how much is it going to be watered down as it completes its path. So you say it's going to be signed in a month's time, yes, but that's not the end of the story. It still has to go to the next stage the next year. And that's where I think the real battles will be about how do we make sure that this doesn't get watered down.
What's your
even
watering
further.
down concern? Is your watering down concern that actually, you know, the work that has been done is great, but then other actors come into play and
Yes.
it gets diluted? I mean, where's the dilution concern then?
Well, I'll take one example of the smart building indicator. It's in there at the moment, but there are some nations that think this is too complex and too difficult to put in, and they want to make it simpler and easier, and in doing so, lose its teeth. But we're looking at this to say that this should be an output measure, and therefore it simplifies how it is done. So our hope is that by making it an output measure that measures what the home is, like the CO2 emissions figure, then it makes it simpler, and we hope that that will remain in the package.
Rami, do you have anything to add to that, or you're nodding in agreement? No.
For sure, when it comes to this very complex European legislative process, it's much more about change management than
Yes.
about political issues.
Yes.
There is some states or people that just don't want to change, but we need to change that. If we want to reach at a European scale the COP21 targets and to have less CO2 emission, we need to change something. To change the way we operate the distribution grid, to change the way we manage the energy in the buildings and go for the smart buildings, and the way the buildings would provide flexibility to us. We need that.
I think the people who are going to make this change happen are consumers themselves. Sure. And with the price of electric vehicles and batteries and things like that dropping and improving, people are starting to go out and buy these things. We've just done a survey ourselves on the stand in the show here and asked people, what is your next vehicle going to be? 75% say it's going to be an electric vehicle. So in 5
There's a
years'
bit of
time,
a positive bias here on
it
that.
is a positive bias, but that's actually where the market starts.
Yeah.
So we won't get everybody, but if this part of the market starts, then it will move on.
Yeah.
So these things are going to move quite quickly, and we're all going to have to react to what's happening in the grid.
Well, the car industry will do it.
I'm the happy driver of an electrical car.
So am I.
Remy, one of the other things you were saying, you know, when we're preparing for this and talking off air, and this is very much, you know, your opportunity to voice where your concerns are or where your excitement is, but you were talking about the local community, the local energy community. We've been covering that for some time with, you know, my friend in Belgium who runs Recoup, you know, which is a great example of that. But do you think the package is going to accelerate that type of notion? I mean, we've got it in Cornwall as well, right? They want to create local areas and so on.
The package is providing a framework for the local energy communities. We do believe that the local energy communities could help the citizen, the consumer, to be more active on the electricity market. It could also help teach them how the electricity market is working. We just have to keep in mind that the infrastructure, the network, should be there, should play a key role in that. So in Enedis, for example, we are testing and providing an offer about collaborative self-consumption. So if you are in a neighborhood with your neighbors, you can share what you are producing, what I am producing, and we can share that to you as a consumer, then I'm consuming what you are producing. That's this collaborative
So it's that sharing economy coming into the energy sector.
organized by the DSO.
Right.
Because the DSO will ensure the efficiency and the reliability, the security of the grid. So we do appreciate this local energy communities initiative, but we are very careful for this fact that the grid must be secure, reliable, and efficient to make that possible.
Yeah.
Without the grid, there will be no local energy communities.
Because the big fear for you is, we ran a webinar about the Brooklyn microgrid project where the utility wasn't even involved and people started transacting with each other. And I mean, those guys are great because they are also going into the whole trying to figure out what the equation is, because at the end of the day, someone has to pay for the wires. We can't get away from the laws of physics.
If you just want to use the grid as an insurance,
Yeah.
you have to pay for that. You are paying any other insurance.
Yeah.
So
And is that where you see your potential as well? I mean, okay, we've got the smart home display, or put it this way, one of the in-home displays where people can see what they're consuming, which is all well and good. But do you see one of your opportunities as well to take that a little bit further, and you can say, hey, I'm producing a bit too much. Fred down the road might need a hand.
The displays are in the start of the journey. It's actually about helping people to understand energy in the first place, because we don't. They then want to play around to control things, which we do as well, but we see where most of our customers want to go is say, look, take this problem away from us, automate it for us, which is why we talk about the active home. But the active home will need somebody, an energy service provider, an intermediary between it and the grid. Yes,
but
the
why?
community.
Why can't the DSO provide that? I mean, because one of my arguments on this is like going, the DSO needs to work from a network operator to a data layer and services operator, so that people like you can plug in.
Yes, I think we're saying the same
Right,
sort of
okay,
thing.
right. I just don't want to add yet another layer.
No, I think it's about simplifying it down to
yeah.
these active homes, service providers, there's the grid, or the DSOs. And it's those three that work together. Now, community energy could be one of those service providers. I think one of my concerns here is about the idea of competition and so on. And if you buy yourself into a community energy scheme, do you have any choice if that community energy scheme is not very efficient, isn't working very well? So I think there are other ways to do it. And community energy schemes which help people understand and see the benefits are great. But a microgrid on a community basis, possibly a step too far. You might well agree with that.
Yeah, because from your point of view, that you then go, well, you just become an insurance provider, right? When the thing breaks down, you go, oh, right, here we go. That microgrid's broken down yet again.
Yeah, and the community has to put in the new copper and things like that.
Yeah, exactly.
there is a value behind the grid. There is synergy. There is a real value behind the grid. Currently, we say that with the local energy community, the storage, all those flexibility, people are probably dream of some big value everywhere, but this value could become real thanks to the grid, thanks to the distribution grid. The grid will enable this value. So we have to keep the grid in good shape, and that's the job of the DSOs.
Again, I'd agree with that. I think the grid is where a lot of the value starts. What we want to see, and why this package I think is good, is how does that value flow down to the consumer?
Exactly.
Because at the moment the consumer is not getting the value, therefore they're not investing in the assets. So we need to get that down, and that's where the energy service provider comes in, and that's all enabled by this package.
And do you think that, just as a final question to both of you, we as an industry need to get better at explaining energy to the consumer in a more innovative way? I think we've tried to, and this is my personal feeling, I think we've been a bit too engineering-led, a bit less benefit-led. I mean, how do you feel about that?
I absolutely agree, and in fact one of the initiatives we're part of in Holland at the moment is suggesting set up something which the UK has, which is Smart Energy NL, which has the role of educating the consumer so that you can get the benefits of the smart meter program coming through. There is that big challenge to get that done, and it has to be done in a coordinated delivery fashion to get the benefits at the end of it. So I agree.
Yeah.
I do agree as well. We have to change the way we explain how this very complex system is working. Kilowatt per hour, it's really difficult to understand. Of course here...
I still don't understand it, right?
I will explain it to you.
I'm covering this.
I will explain it to you. But we need to change to be more innovative in the way we explain that. And thus people will directly jump in because it will be much more fun than kilowatt per hour.
So I could see this energy service provider getting to the stage whereby they say to you, you use 7,500 kilowatt hours a year, we'll give you that 7,500, in fact we'll give you 10,000 kilowatt hours a year for £1,000. That's all you have to do, you don't have to worry about anything else. And then the energy service provider works with the ESO to work out how do we get the best value out of that. Much simpler, much easier.
Well, that's the way it should happen, right?
Absolutely.
I'm not going to run around, turn on my fridge and a kettle
Absolutely.
and wire all this stuff up. It's a service I want.
Yes.
I want comfort, and I want the light to work when I turn it on.
And so what the Commission has started is very much going in that direction. We'd love to see it carry on through and not be watered down too much, because we haven't got a lot of time to get this thing right.
And all the digital technology will definitely help us to involve the consumer more.
Yeah.
We have everything ready to make them much more involved in the market and the energy sector. Definitely.
Perfect. On that note, we'll leave it. I'll give you the last word, Remy. Thank you very much for watching another Energy Talk here in the studio with Engerati. Thanks again.